I'll make just a couple or maybe three broad statements in order to provide context to the session we are about to have. So, knowledge as a collective experience. Arguably, knowledge has always been a collective experience. When the science as institution didn't exist a long time ago, it often took an artistic form. It's easy to think of a Greek poet in the middle of a street or in the middle of a square, for instance, full of children singing Homer's Odyssey as a geography lesson for those children. But nowadays, for most people, knowledge and science are basically synonyms. They are both of, particularly science is the most important institution regarding knowledge, and it is to provide us with the theoretical foundations, the language, the tools, the techniques that everyone interested in knowledge should use, should compare, should appreciate, should understand. Knowledge is to be carried that way and only that way. The rest is ordinary observation of events, sometimes extraordinary observation of events, or common sense. Also, science is the one institution to create and distribute the roles to be played around knowledge, both as individuals and members of a community. And there are many communities around knowledge. There are those who know, those who don't know, those who don't know yet, those who can't know, those who will never know, many communities. And the science as institution kind of creates and distributes them all. For instance, community can play a huge role for an anthropologist. He or she can fall in love with the community he's doing research on and with. But communities, and please think of an old school anthropologist here, but communities don't usually get to know themselves better because an anthropologist was there. And nobody expects them to know themselves better. Nobody thinks they are supposed to learn anything from that experience. Bertolt Brecht put this kind of problem in words and tried to give this issue a political meaning. And I quote him. It's from Mother Courage and Her Children. One of the characters says, "As long as the masses are the objects of politics, they cannot look upon what happens to them as an experiment, but only as a fate. They learn no more from a catastrophe than a guinea pig learns about biology." So we have the knowledge, we have the science institution, we have the collective experience, but we also have this political meaning to the idea of knowledge as a collective experience, sometimes as a failed experience. What do we mean when we say knowledge as a collective experience in a place like this? What do we mean by knowledge as a collective experience when we work with communities, either locally or internet-based? What do we mean when we say knowledge as a collective experience when we intervene, when we try to put art in that situation, in that community, trying to, shake things up somehow? We don't obviously mean the same knowledge as the anthropologist, and we don't mean the kind of knowledge one could expect from a microscope, for instance. But as artists know, it is hard to, walk away from the shadow of science as an institution. It's been many centuries, it's been a million years, and it's complicated. It's complicated, and it's not as easy as saying, no, this is public art or participatory art or whatever, because, this shadow is continuously following us, and artists know how difficult it is. When I think about these issues, I often get back to something I used to discuss with a good, I was going to say friend of mine, but he's more of a long-distance master or long-distance fellow traveler named Robert Harold Kantor from the School of Visual Arts in New York. I often get back to the times when we discussed the idea that Theodor Adorno wrote somewhere. He said, or he wrote, "Art knows us better than we know ourselves." And I think this is a political statement, but a political statement which is not about getting rid of false consciousness through art or something like that, and it's not about turning art into a political messenger either. I think that Adorno is trying to connect art, no matter if it's advanced music, installation, or a novel by Thomas Mann. He's trying to connect art to everyday life, to our ordinary practices, to our structures of feeling, to the fantasies that mediate our everyday life and make it sustainable. And also, he's trying to connect art to the many ways in which we articulate our being in common. You know, something I've learned as a cultural coordinator for a political party that takes participation and collective experiences seriously is that every political change is a cultural change, and also that there is no cultural change without a political dimension. You know, I've been doing cultural research for a long time, and I've also been interested in the failure that the 20th century experienced when trying to connect art to politics and politics to art. This failure, or some failed, very, very notoriously failed experiences in the 20th century have been one of my sources of interest. And, you know, the political transformations that manage to last long, those that really matter, are the ones that touch the cultural core that supports our life in common. Because elections might be won or lost, and institutions and elections and the ballot box matters. Governments, in the end, come and go, for good or bad. But, you know, there are these changes that really last long, that really make politics worthwhile for people like me who are actually quitting a teaching job to devote more time to politics and even to run for Congress, which makes me a joke, actually, talking about this. Anyway. Thank you. That's very encouraging. Anyway, the political transformations that manage to last long are the ones that touch the cultural core of our being in common. That's the headline. This means that every political change, that it's not only a change of government, has to connect to other changes. Let's say, to changes in language, to changes, to the way we look at our life and times, and to the way we experience our life and times, to the meanings we stick to words, and also to the words we use themselves, and to the images that mediate, as I've said before, our collective and individual both goals and desires, all of which are political changes. I'm running out of time. I just want to thank you for coming, and thank the organization again, and say hello to Farid Raccoon, who is the next person coming on stage. Thank you very much.